nose in a day is all about tactics. I think honestly, a lot of these big wall climbs, like the tactics are super important. And that's something I didn't know when I got into climbing. And I mean, I didn't even know where to look for that information. Like I knew all the basics of, someone leads, builds an anchor, someone follows, but until I, spent more time climbing, spent more time big walling, spent more time trad climbing, and especially really in the past couple of years when I started doing a lot more speed climbing, like things get easier the faster you do them. If you're spending less time at the top of a belay pulling up like an 80-meter rope, like you're more recovered and you're more ready to go for the next pitch.
Hmm.
And then obviously, like if you get into simul climbing where you're not stopping at all of a sudden you're doing less extraneous movements. And so I think a lot of that, I think a lot of these bigger routes, like the secret isn't just like get stronger, be able to do it. The secret is get really good at your systems, dial them down, figure out what like the best people who are doing that route, what they are doing. And as long as it's within your safety limit, because, all of the tactics aren't the safest things in the world. Um,
Right.
but that makes the routes easier. I mean, the easiest example I have is I talked about this a few times, but the naked edge. That's a route that I think there's three approach pitches, and then it's six pitches of climbing. And for most people, that takes 5 or 6 hours their first time. And for most people, that takes that long. It takes maybe they get it down a little faster as they know the moves, but like it's still a full to half day out route. And there's a big community of us in Boulder who will do it, like I said, before work within an hour. And that all comes down to tactics. Like you're putting your harness on at your car, you're putting the gear in the right order that you're going to climb it in. Sometimes you put in your shoes on before you even do the approach pitches, just to keep things going efficiently. And honestly, a lot of that I got from I climbed with Brad a little bit before, well, a few years ago, and when I was actually a long time ago, but when I was
Go,
learning to trad climb,
Brad Gobright.
and he was all yeah, and he was all about like he would bring every piece of gear he needed and not a single gear more or piece more, and that was when I was like, no matter what, I'm bringing a double rack on every pitch. And so like just following him up a lot of things, like he would literally not even have an extra carabiner on his harness when he was doing routes that were actually anything hard for him, easy for him, anything. And so like taking that and putting that to longer routes really does help. Like if you're not carrying extra 5 pounds of gear, things are a lot smoother. Not only because you're lighter, but also because you don't have to fumble with 20 carabiners on your harness.
All right, y'all, just a quick 30 seconds here to shout out the sponsor of this video, PhysiVantage Nutrition, the best of the best when it comes to climbing performance nutrition. I've been using it for years. I think you're going to love it, but don't take my word for it. Check out their athlete team. Oh my gosh, Alex Magos, Jonathan Seacrest, Daniel Woods, Paige Clausen, Natalia Grossman, Amity Warm, Jordan Cannon. There's too many to name, y'all. They're using PhysiVantage every single day because it works. I think you're going to love it. Just give it a shot. Use code STRUGGLE at checkout for 15% off and take your performance to the next level. All right, let's get back to the video. Where does the calculation come in with regard to safety and where you're willing to push that? Brad, I think famously was willing to push the envelope a little bit on some of that. Speed climbing in general is kind of known for that. Simulclimbing, these kinds of things. It tends to be a calculation between partners on how light are we going to go and how few pieces are we going to place in between anchors and these kinds of things. How has your view of that evolved, and how have you even learned a lot of those tactics when it comes to how fast, how light?
Yeah, I mean, I told you the little story already about the bars and jacket type thing, for like the all day being out, but it's a big difference. Like routes that you have dialed, you're gonna go up with a lot less. You know where all the gear is. Maybe I bring an extra carabiner here or there to clip some fixed gear, but like routes that you have dialed and if you're climbing with partners that you are very familiar with and comfortable with, um, it's a completely different thing. It's like rehearsing a sport move. You're not gonna do an extra move or a sport climb or a boulder. You're not gonna do extra moves if you don't have to.
Hmm.
When it's on sighting, that's a bit different. And it kind of goes down to like the grade you're climbing, from the topo as well as like how hard things are feeling. Um, but I go quite a bit heavier when it's things that I don't know, when it's the unknown. And I'm not typically trying to climb at my limit grade wise or speed wise when it's unknown. And especially when it's a different rock type.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That the more unknowns, the more you're going to be willing to over prepare. I'm assuming, so you don't get yourself into any trouble. Then again, if you've been on a route 100 times, you know exactly what the placements are. You don't need to carry anything extraneous with you. You mentioned that you're climbing 5 or 6 days a week, and a lot of that, I think, you try to get outside. How hard are you pushing when you're going out? Are you doing a lot of volume that's submaximal, or are you pushing yourself and projecting at your limit? That seems like quite a bit of climbing. So I'm curious how
Yeah.
you look at that, and also what your perspective is on rest.
Um, so in general, I rarely climb at my limit or like project at my limit. Like right now, it's maybe once or twice a week. And I honestly just have a hard time enjoying that type of climbing. And so like I'm climbing 5 or 6 days a week, but I climb the same routes over and over again. Like I go to El Dorado Canyon. Usually we're speed climbing. We'll climb like the Naked Edge or something, which is a six pitch 511 route. And I can do something like that because I know it. Like I'm less scared when I'm out there climbing. And also I can do it in an hour, hour and a half before work.
Wow.
Where if I'm going sport climbing, it's going to take me rest between goes. Like this project I'm working right now, like I have to drive up to Boulder Canyon, which is a little bit further from my house. You know, every go I'm taking 40, 45 minutes between, if not longer, between goes. And by that time, half of my day's eaten up, and I'm trying to get home to spend a little bit of time with my daughter before she goes to bed. So it's like some types of climbing I can do so much more efficiently and get a lot out of it, not just physically fitness or physical fitness, but more of like I enjoy it and I learn a little bit every time I'm like I climb these routes over and over again, but I also still learn. Like I'm learning, okay, I can do this move more efficiently. I can use less energy here. If I'm feeling stronger, I can actually skip these two moves and it's just faster. So it's kind of like a different kind of climbing than just pure like limit strength climbing, but it's also something that I get sucked into doing way more than I probably should.